Ich schwöre bei Gott,
the Almighty and Omniscient,
dem Allmächtigen und Allwissenden,
that I will speak the pure truth.
Hi, everyone. What if the man at the center of one of the most brutal battles in history carried a secret so powerful he nearly took it to the grave? This isn't just about war. It's about a general whose life was built on obedience, loyalty, and duty, yet ended with a confession that turned everything upside down. Field Marshal Friedrich Paulus, the commander of the German 6th Army at Stalingrad, surrendered when Hitler expected him to die. And years later, on his deathbed, his final words stunned the world. What did he reveal? And why are historians still debating his legacy today? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear isn't just history. It's the shocking truth that rewrote how the world remembers him. Friedrich Paulus was not born into greatness. He entered the world on September 23, 1890, in the small German town of Breitenau, nestled in Hesse. His father was a modest schoolteacher, and his mother came from simple farming roots. Nothing about his background suggested that he would one day find himself at the center of the deadliest battle of World War II. From childhood, Friedrich was reserved. He was not adventurous, nor did he rebel like other boys. Instead, he was known for his politeness, caution, and methodical nature. He was not a natural leader, but he was observant and steady, traits that would one day shape his military career in ways no one could have imagined. At first, Paulus dreamed of a life at sea. The discipline and adventure of the Imperial German Navy fascinated him. But poor health and a lack of family influence blocked his entry. Almost by chance, his path shifted toward the army, and in 1910, at just 19 years old, he joined the 111th Infantry Regiment of the German Army. He wasn't a bold fighter, but he had something equally valuable: precision. His superiors quickly noticed his eye for detail and his talent for organization. When World War I erupted in 1914, many officers sought glory in the trenches. Paulus, however, found himself working behind the scenes, coordinating supplies, mapping movements, and maintaining order in chaos. To some, it seemed unremarkable, but his accuracy often meant the difference between survival and disaster. During this time, Paulus married Elena Rosetti Solescu, a Romanian noblewoman from an aristocratic family. Their marriage elevated his social standing and gave him a sense of stability throughout his career. When the war ended in 1918, Germany was humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles, which stripped the nation of power and reduced its army to just 100,000 men. Many officers were dismissed, but Paulus remained. His reliability ensured that he kept his place in the weakened army. Through the 1920s, Paulus advanced slowly but steadily. He wasn't charismatic, and he didn't chase glory like some of his peers. Instead, he remained disciplined, apolitical, and cautious, qualities that worked in his favor as Germany stumbled through political chaos. By the 1930s, with Adolf Hitler rising to power, Paulus had carved out a reputation as a dependable planner. While others courted politics, he stayed in the shadows, mastering logistics and strategy. This lack of flair may have held him back, but it made him exactly the kind of officer Hitler preferred: obedient, cautious, and reliable. When World War II began in 1939, Paulus was not yet a household name. But as Germany's war machine swept across Europe, officers like him, men who could translate grand strategy into practical plans, were suddenly invaluable. During the invasion of France in 1940, Paulus worked under General Gerd von Rundstedt as a senior staff officer. The campaign was one of Germany's greatest victories, completed in just 6 weeks. His careful planning reinforced his growing reputation as a master organizer, the city on the Volga River that bore Joseph Stalin's name. For Hitler, Stalingrad was not just strategic, it was symbolic. Conquering it, he believed, would break Soviet morale. At first, the 6th Army advanced quickly, but the closer they came to Stalingrad, the more brutal the fighting became. By the summer of 1942, the battle had descended into a nightmare. Factories, apartment blocks, and even sewers became battlegrounds. Soviet troops, supported by civilians, fought with relentless determination, street by street, building by building. The Germans were dragged into one of the most savage urban battles in history. At that moment, Paulus faced a choice. His army still had fuel and mobility, enough to attempt a breakout. Many of his generals urged him to act. Walter von Seydlitz pressed him to order an escape while there was still time. But far away, Hitler gave a direct command: hold the city at all costs. He promised that the Luftwaffe would supply the army by air. It was an impossible promise. The airlift failed miserably, delivering only a fraction of what was needed. As winter deepened, the Sixth Army starved and froze in the ruins of Stalingrad. By early 1943, the situation was hopeless. Soldiers wrapped themselves in rags for warmth. Ammunition was running out. Food was almost gone. The wounded lay untreated, and frostbite spread like wildfire. Hitler, still obsessed with holding Stalingrad, promoted Paulus to Field Marshal in late January 1943, a title no German officer had ever received without victory. The implication was clear: no German Field Marshal had ever been captured alive. Hitler expected Paulus to commit suicide rather than surrender, but Paulus refused. On January 31, 1943, he surrendered to the Soviets. The once mighty Sixth Army was destroyed. Of the 90,000 German soldiers taken prisoner, only a fraction would ever return home. The surrender of Paulus was the first time a German field marshal had been captured alive, and it marked the turning point of World War II. In Soviet captivity, Paulus changed. Along with other officers, he joined the National Committee for a Free Germany, urging his fellow soldiers to abandon Hitler. Once the loyal servant of the Reich, he now spoke openly against it, calling for surrender to save lives. By the 1950s, he lived in East Germany, portrayed by the communist regime as the general who had broken with Hitler and embraced a new path. He appeared in interviews and public events, carefully distancing himself from the Nazi years. By 1957, however, Paulus was gravely ill. Years of captivity and the toll of age had left him frail. In a hospital in Dresden, dressed in a simple gown and often wearing an oxygen mask, he reflected on his life. And then, in his final days, he spoke the words that stunned the world. "I cannot keep this hidden anymore," he confessed. "I had no intention of shooting myself for that Bohemian corporal." It was a cutting reference to Hitler. In that single sentence, Paulus rejected the suicidal tradition of the German officer corps and revealed why he had refused to die for Hitler. As a devout Catholic, suicide was unthinkable to him. Even at Stalingrad, he had forbidden his men from reckless sacrifice. On February 1, 1957, Friedrich Paulus died at the age of 66. In East Germany, he was honored as a symbol of redemption, a general who had turned his back on fascism. Officials staged a state funeral, placing wreaths and delivering speeches that celebrated his rejection of Hitler. But in West Germany, reactions were far colder. Many veterans branded him a coward, accusing him of failing to save his men when retreat had still been possible. Even today, Paulus remains a divisive figure. Some historians argue that he embodied the dangers of blind obedience, that discipline without conscience leads to disaster. Others see him as a tragic figure, a man who realized too late that loyalty to a corrupt leader is no virtue. But one truth is undeniable: he was neither a monster nor a martyr. He was a flawed man, cautious and obedient, who carried the weight of Stalingrad on his shoulders until his final breath. And that was the story of Friedrich Paulus, a man whose final words still divide history. Do you see him as a coward or a tragic figure of war? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey into untold history, Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories brought to life. Thanks for watching.